Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is August 5, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Patrick A. McCarthy. Is that the correct way to mispronounce it?
Yes, that's perfect.
And you go by Pat, so I'll call you Pat. Where are you
Okay.
calling in from? Where are
Yeah.
you calling in from, Pat?
Hmm. What's that?
Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from my office at the University of Miami in Coral Gables, Florida.
How cool is that? The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
What is the best thing for a human being? Hmm. I think a life of inquiry and growth.
Beautiful. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Um, any particular what particular poem is
Yeah, what form are you is your favorite?
ah I like epics. Um,
Epics. So do you mean by epics uh printed matter or any matter?
Well, any matter, but in particular printed matter. Paradise Lost, the Divine Comedy, um, things like that have a large scale.
Large scale, yes. And so let's just stay on printed matter and divert for a second. Did you grow up a reader because your parents told you to read, or they read as an example, or on your own?
Um, Pretty much on my own, I would say. My father was not a fan of literature in general and novels because, as he pointed out, they're about things that didn't happen. And he wanted to read about things that did happen. My mother read mystery novels, but that was pretty much it. And I didn't really become interested in literature as opposed to all of the science fiction and mystery novels that I read in high school until I was in halfway through college, basically.
Great. So, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
They have a lot of reasons. They might collect it to make themselves feel safer,
Yeah.
um, or to be able to dominate somebody else, uh, for example.
Yeah. Do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate or more invented?
Hmm, Probably a little of both, but I would say basically innate.
Yeah. Do thoughts create emotions?
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, I'm not sure that needs to be elaborated on, but thoughts can be
That's fine.
uh,
No,
re-
that's fine. Yeah, one
recollections.
thing yeah, one thing, Pat, you're leaning one way, you lean the opposite way because
Uh,
it's in reverse. So you just go, "That's it, perfect." Yeah,
that's it.
that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's deceiving. But yeah, a lot of these questions you can answer, you can elaborate or not, and you put them into the context you want. You're doing great. This is fun.
Mhm.
So, Pat, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
Think it.
is is thinking more innate or more invented?
It has to. I think it has to be largely innate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can humans think without language?
Yes, but they can't express what they think very well without language.
It's good. Chomsky says a language is not just words, it's culture, a tradition, a unification of community,
Mhm.
a whole history that creates what a community is. Pat, what do you do when language doesn't work, when language breaks down?
It depends on how it breaks down. If it breaks down, in the simple in the way I would associate with Donald Trump, for example, um, with no regard for the truth and no regard for whether uh, you know you have to prove that your lies are true. Then language is really just broken down, and there's no way to talk to a lot of people.
So you brought up the word truth. I'm going to divert from the script for a second because Louis Buñuel, the filmmaker, said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Any comment?
I think that's probably a good observation because when people think they found the truth, they mean that in a rather absolute way. And anybody who differs from me is wrong. That kind of thing. That's going overboard.
I like that word overboard.
Yeah.
So, 99.9% of the people I've said that Buñuel quote to
Mhm.
agree. One guy said, "That's bullshit, man. If I'm seeking the truth, I want to find it." And I
Yeah.
like what he said, contrary. But
Yeah.
there's another hidden question here: is the cliche is that the journey is more important than the destination. Why do we have to seek or name a destination if the journey's more important?
I don't think we do need to, except to persuade ourselves that we're not wasting our time.
Dude, there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right. Thank you. Pat, are are your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
What was the second?
Feeling
Oh,
or
feeling.
thinking? Yeah, are we
Thinking
more
or feeling.
feeling or thinking beings? I know it's
I
both
haven't
and it
thought of that.
depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, just in general, your observation.
No, I think for most people, feelings are more important than thoughts.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is thinking, well, these are two Alan Turing questions from 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
uh, I don't know that I believe in the idea of a soul, so I'm not sure what not sure how to get at that at all.
Yeah. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
That's not settled yet. I think. I mean, if you read something like the play RUR, the Chopek uh, play, and you have these robots, and they are at first not really thinking beings, but as things go on, they become thinking beings, and they overthrow the people who
Yeah.
created them. Um, so that can happen.
But that's a play. He invented the play,
That's
right?
true.
And
Yeah.
then same with Kubrick and HAL, the computer in 2001.
Yeah.
So good observation. Pat, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I think that when I pursue meaning, I'm pursuing something that makes me happy. So that I find it it's one thing that makes me happy. A
Yeah.
martini is another. So that's
Hey, you got another commonality with Buñuel. He had a martini every night. But it's interesting that phenomenon, because Viktor Frankl says meaning lasts and happiness doesn't necessarily last.
uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we creating it?
I think that's beyond um,
Pay grade.
my area.
But again, some of these questions, if you feel that way, I'm after is your hunch or your guess. So we can move on.
Right?
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of light or speed of
Thought.
thought. I would like to see a way of 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 measuring that, but I think the speed of light is faster than anything else.
The poet Audre Lorde said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Yvonne Rainer responded, said, "You can if you expose the tools."
Uh-huh.
What new tool do you suggest?
Not sure. Yeah, I just don't have a hold on that.
What tool do you gravitate towards the most now? What's a tool that you utilize? What tool do you like and utilize a lot in your life?
What tool do I
Yeah.
utilize a lot?
And it doesn't have to be tangible like a hammer. Tools can be like whatever. Printed word is a tool.
Yeah, yeah. I would say, well, one, the computer,
Yeah.
uh, and two, in general, words. Those
Yeah. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I don't. I don't really.
Beautiful.
I don't really worry.
That's
Uh,
beautiful. I like that.
so-
Got a good attitude. Marshall McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race.
uh-huh.
And by artists, I mean authors, poets, painters,
Right.
filmmakers, whatever, shoe shine, whatever you can call. They're the antenna of the race. The artists are broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so
Hmm.
that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about the invention. So, we've all embraced the computer, but we don't really know how it changed us,
Right.
deeper. We know the surface that it's changed us,
Hmm.
but I'm talking about deeper. These are the hidden psychic effects. So the question McLuhan probed his whole career was, and I ask you, why do we humans ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I think because they're more focused on their immediate pleasure uh, or shortcuts. They can do things easily, and uh, the fact that you're sort of losing your ability to do things without the computer is sort of lost.
Yeah, it's a good answer. And so, do artists have moral obligation?
I think everyone does,
Yeah.
but the artists especially, at least if they're real artists. Yeah,
Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
hmm. Well, new ideas require me to change what I think. So I think there's a natural resistance to them in some cases, but at the same time, they can produce new light on something. So I would say I'm not especially afraid of either one.
Yeah, it's good. Pat, can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
I know what I've thought of for decades as my earliest memory. Um, I was we were living in Utah. I was about maybe 5 years old, and my I was in the backyard with my mother. It was autumn, and there there was a leaf that I thought was very pretty, and I picked it up and gave it to a neighbor lady. And my mother asked me, why do you think she wants that leaf? She has a whole yard full of leaves. And I thought, okay, but I thought still wanted to give her that leaf. I don't know why I wanted to give her the leaf either, but it was just, I thought it was a nice thing to do.
It's beautiful. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Depends on what we're remembering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me someone, Pat, within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, who just briefly, who had an impact on you like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, inside my family, the the biggest influence was my mother. I mean, my older brothers had graduated from high school and gone into the Marine Corps, and that that was fine with her. But she wanted someone to go to college. She'd not been able to go to college, so she was determined that somebody in her family was going to go to college. And so when I was in high school, she talked with the guidance counselors and with other people about what to do to make it more possible for me to get a scholarship and so forth. The result was that I got a National Merit Scholarship. I wouldn't have done that without her.
Beautiful.
The one outside my family, I would say, a major example, was Phillip Herring. He was a professor at the University of Virginia. And in my senior year, I actually, it was his first year on the faculty. I took his course on James Joyce. And I had read Dubliners and Portrait of the Artist before, but in his class, I also read Exiles, and more importantly, I read Ulysses. And I don't think that it would have occurred to me to go to graduate school to pursue a PhD if I hadn't read Ulysses and found it so fascinating.
Yeah. But were you reading Dubliners and Portrait because of English classes or literature classes or on your own?
I didn't read very much on my own because I had a thorough schedule. When I started as a chemistry major, which meant hours of labs,
Yeah,
and so forth. So I didn't do a lot out, but I read both Portrait in my first year and Dubliners in my second year, and that was that. And my change of major from chemistry to English came when I returned from my summer break in my third year. because in the second year I'd taken a year-long class on quantitative analysis of substances. And I didn't like that class at all. It was, I was just bored with the lab work. And some of my calculations were not coming out well, possibly because I rushed them so that I could go out and read a novel. This is where it was starting to get going for a course in modern American literature. So that's
That's good. We're going to get back into your career path. It's perfect trend, path. You go from analysis and chemistry to the riddles of Finnegan's Wake. That's it. You did it. So, were you raised a particular religion?
No, I was. I converted when I was in high school, or I guess junior high school.
To what?
To what my mother had been my mother's religion, which was Catholicism.
And are you still a practicing Catholic?
No, I'm an ex-Catholic. That's my religion.
When did you go? When did you go away from Catholicism? About what age?
Early 1970s, about mid to late 20s.
Do you pray?
No,
If
I don't
God,
think there's anyone to pray to.
well, that's funny. You anticipate next question, Pat. You must have ESP. If God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
You weren't so bad after all.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I don't think there is such a thing as evil in the abstract. I think it manifests itself only in people, and I think they make choices that are evil. I mean, we're right now the sentencing trial is going on for the boy who, at age 19 or whatever it was, went to Marjorie Douglas Stoneman Douglas High School and murdered 17 people. And he was found guilty. He pleaded guilty, and now when I listened to the testimony, I have a hard time finding any sympathy whatsoever for him.
Yeah,
I could feel that if I thought that people are innately good, but I don't know about that.
pretty heavy. So the hidden question here, Pat, really is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? I set it up with a few modern thinkers. Alan Watts said, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mm-hmm.
JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. And Walt Whitman says, I no doubt deserve my enemies. So it's a lot of thoughts. Pat, the basic question is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how do you react to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Well, you have to acknowledge them, though. I don't see how that you get around that. But I could come up with an alternative source, a comedian from the southern comedian from the 1950s and 60s, Dave Gardner, who used to say, love your enemies, it'll drive them crazy. So that's another way of thinking about it.
That is really good. How do you spell his last name? Just G-A what?
Gardner. Yeah.
I've never heard of him. Love your enemy. That'll drive him crazy.
Yeah.
So that's, Ram Dass said, I'm having a real hard time loving George Bush. It's like fill in the blank. I'm having a real hard time loving
Well,
Putin.
they have to know that you love them. Then
Yeah.
that drives them. Act as if you love them.
Well, no, it's funny because I've given lectures and I'm not pro-Trump at all. And I
Yeah.
go, the only thing you can do with Trump is love him. And people look at me like, get out of here. It's like, what does hating do? And it's really that question. Is hating, the act of hating, more innate or more invented?
I think it's innate. I think nobody has to tell you to hate something or someone. It's a little difficult to put, but if a great if something monstrous has happened, I think it's natural to hate it.
Yeah. Well, that's also Marcel Duchamp saying there's no solution because there's no problem. So it sounds mamby-pamby or Pollyanna, but it's back to what Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. And some people say, well, if you don't acknowledge him, empower them,
I think the second one is truer.
Yeah, is truer. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Pat, why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, I think we like to see something shaped in a way that we find intriguing, and we don't get that all out of life automatically.
Yeah. So you sort of walked us through how you got to literature. You started in chemistry, great crossover. You went into literature.
Yeah.
But what's the tipping point? I mean, you sort of said it, but let's even go pre-Dubliners and Portrait. Why were you, like when you're reading early on, who's making an impact on you saying, I want to pursue? Have you written creatively on your own, or you're just, or you're a nonfiction writer? Are you both fiction and nonfiction?
I'm pretty strictly nonfiction.
Okay,
the only thing that I did was in high school, I won $10 for first prize in a poetry contest, and my poem was a parody of the song Big John, using my chemistry teacher as the big, but not he was a tiny guy,
right,
and so forth. So that was sort of my limit.
Yeah. So you haven't really written poetry since then?
Only when in my first year in a PhD program, when the professor told us that we had to write a series of poems in particular styles. Even one was a villanelle. I mean, that's hard. And you have to write a sonnet, and you have to write 50 lines of blank verse. And his reason was that we were going to be looking at at critiques of poems, and we needed to know something about what it took to create that poem. And so we didn't have to write good poems. We just had to know this involves work and we have to respect it.
Well, let's go into it, because basically I asked people, what was the tipping point to pursue your career? Like, so what was the tipping point? Was it Phillip Herring where you went, I want to pursue nonfiction writing and being a professor? Did they go hand in hand? Or did you say, I'm going to pursue nonfiction writing and then you became a professor, or professor first and then?
None of the above, really. I mean, when I changed from chemistry major to English major, I didn't immediately decide that I wanted to be a professor or a writer or anything like that. I thought of going to medical school. For about a year, I thought about that. Then I had a rather poor grade in biology, which sort of changed my idea about medical school. But I thought then of being maybe a high school teacher of English. And I did actually have a couple of offers from military academies and private schools in Virginia. But when I didn't want to do that. I really didn't want to be at a military academy. And when I went to, I'd gone to high school in Birmingham, Alabama, and when I went to the superintendent, after getting when I was working on a master's degree, and he said, I can't hire you as a teacher. You've got all the education, but you haven't taken an education course. And I can only hire people. He said, you ought to teach in a college. And I said, could I do that? And he said, yeah. Nobody had told me that before. So I finished up the major, the master's degree, and I got a job teaching at a college where I probably would have taught the same things for years and years, but I wouldn't have taught what I wanted to, which was a course in Irish literature. So I went into a PhD program with the aim of being able to teach courses in Irish literature. And probably only because this was sort of expected of faculty members, I started publishing. And that just led to more investment in publishing and so forth.
So you wrote books, like you've written 12 books, and it's intriguing because the riddles of Finnegan's Wake, that's the kind of book all you need is on your shelf and stare at the binding. You don't even have to read it. Enough.
Yeah.
That's it. Like your word, intrigue, inquire, your first word, inquiry. I like that.
Yeah.
But on we're going to go into Joyce now a little, but staying on you and your pursuits as a writer. A screenwriting teacher told me great art or a great book is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art or great film, great book is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process writing books?
You mean my intention or the artist's, the writer's?
Yours. But then we'll go from yours to what you guess about Joyce. Yeah.
So my intention is always the same. It's to produce something new about about a passage, about an author or whatever, and and to do it in clear language
Yeah.
without jargon.
And let's stay on you for a second. Duchamp says there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your reader when you're writing your book?
In a general sense, I'm thinking of the reader all the time because I ask myself, is this clear? Would this be clear to somebody who hadn't had that thought?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Now, your intuition, your gut feeling, your impulse, why did Joyce how did intention, what role did intention play in Joyce's creative process?
So, okay, Joyce's intentions are sometimes a little hard uh, to pinpoint unless you've got a letter in which he describes the intentions, but they change. I'm when he began writing Finnegan's Wake, he didn't know. It's pretty clear he didn't know exactly what he wanted to do, except that he had a general idea of a book that would be universal in its appeal and so forth. And he thought of using Tristan and Isolde as a structure for Finnegan's Wake, sort of the way he had thought of the Odyssey for Ulysses. He didn't go through with that, but there was a stage at which he thought of that. So we can see all kinds of things there. He was influenced by recent events in Europe, including in Ireland, and he was influenced by the difficulties he had with publishers and with legal issues. That that's pretty clear, and he uses it as his material. So
Well, we'll get into this more. That was a good start. Duchamp, who was hanging out with, I mean, McLuhan and Duchamp are in Paris the same time. He says there's no art without an audience. How much do you think Joyce was thinking of his readers when he was writing The Wake?
um, I think he had them in mind at all times, and he said that he really thought an author, if somebody went up to him and said, "Hey, what's this here, Governor?" Uh, that you ought to be able to give a lucid, clear explanation of what you were doing. And now that doesn't mean that he wanted to make things easy. He also said that he was looking for the ideal reader suffering from the ideal insomnia.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. Go back to the intention. I heard or read, and I love to repeat it because it might be kind of bullshitty, is Joyce got good reviews for Ulysses, so then he sat on the toilet for 17 years and farted out Finnegan's Wake. And he said, I'll show them, give me a good review, I'll show you. So it's a stupid question, but I really got some amazing answers from all these great Joycean scholars like yourself. How much percentage, just a guess, do you get The Wake? 50, 80, 100%? What's your guess on you getting The Wake? Just in general.
So in general, I'd say maybe 80%.
You get it 80. Okay, now, what do you think James Joyce got? Same thing, same question. How much did James Joyce get the wake?
100%.
Is the wake true?
Is it true?
Yeah,
It's fiction.
it's fiction. Is is the wake real?
It is it's connected to reality, I think. But I wouldn't say that it's real. It's the the assumption is that we're in a dream world and reality gets distorted in one way or another, and that's how he set it up. But that's an idea that wasn't with him at the beginning. It's different from Ulysses, which he had. Well, really, it evolved from a story he thought of writing for Dubliners, and boy, it would have been the longest short story in the world if he had kept that.
Yeah, Lily Tomlin says reality is just a collective hunch. My question to you, Pat, is perception reality?
I think we take it for reality. I'm not sure that it is.
Yeah. A couple of my film heroes, and I really appreciate you writing an article on Mary Ellen Butte's film Passages from Finnegan's Wake.
Oh yeah.
In the future, I would love to do a whole salon, Zoom with you on that film alone, because I've studied the film and deeply and been on panels with people who are in it.
Mhm.
It's quite an effort, but again, it's totally stupid. You can't make a film of Finnegan's Wake. Finnegan's Wake already is a film.
Yeah.
And I loved your article. I didn't even consume it all yet, but here's the question. Two of my film heroes, George Manupelli's mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. So, Joyce aside, just in
Mhm.
general,
Mhm.
is art making, filmmaking, writing books, is art making more self expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technology, culture, and environments are dominant?
I go with the latter. I don't think that people always think of self-expression, but they have within reach a certain amount of technology, kind of technology, a certain world, a so that really shapes what they're going to do.
Right, because I've heard also what Joyce did was for Finnegan's Wake,
Mhm.
listen to shortwave radio in Paris in the 20s and wrote it all down.
Mhm.
So it's really like he's a vehicle for how electronic word was changing us. Mary Ellen Butte, my friend went to the New York Finnegan's Wake reading club and says Finnegan's Wake's all about TV, and they go, no, it isn't. And then they watch passages from Finnegan's Wake, and there's the TV set in there, and they went, right, oh my god.
Yeah,
But the hidden question on that one, Pat, is can art making be egoless?
egoless.
Yeah.
I don't think ego is necessarily a bad thing, and but I don't think art can be totally devoid of ego. You feel that you have something to say, and that's true of scholarly writing too. You feel that something's been overlooked. A lot of articles start off with when, in the 17th century, some people interpreted this at so and so, but they were all wrong. and so, and how this is how it should be, interpreted. That's not bad, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm glad you made a valid judgment. Like, I'm not against the word ego or against what ego is supposed to stand for.
Yeah.
It's just a tool. We found a word.
Yeah.
But the really hidden question of that vehicle question is, was Freud right?
I think a lot of people think Freud was wrong about everything, but
that is a great answer.
By the way, the radio business in Finnegan's Wake is largely in Book 2, Chapter 3. It's there is a radio broadcast going on there, and that's a very interesting scene. So
yeah, interesting. It's also, what about the 6 coaches? Campbell's wife made the TV script that's in the middle of Finnegan's Wake into a dance piece, and she was more famous than Campbell until he got on Bill Moyers.
Yep.
Yeah,
I saw that there was a production of that I saw one time, and that's
well, this is to veer off for a second into poetry, because you brought it up earlier, and it, Joyce wrote some poems, and it is interesting. What's the function of poetry?
Well, Robert Frost said it. It shows the importance of what do you say? A few of a few words. How much you can, bundle into the language. So I think that's one reason we have poems. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You got another one or another thing?
No, I'm not.
That's fine. Listen, Pat, that's amazing, because I learned someone came up to Robert Frost once and said, "Could you explain this poem?" And he says, "You mean you want me to say it worse?" And so that goes back to your depending on letters, because, the McLuhan book, The Letters of Marshall McLuhan, is like probably the best McLuhan book.
Yeah.
The others are unreadable anyways, but he got everything he knows from the Wake. And we like to read people's letters. But in Joyce's case or McLuhan's case or anybody, how much do we rely that they're really saying the truth in the letters? So you turn to the letters and go, well, I can study Joyce's motives because I can read the letters.
Yeah.
But again, I consider Finnegan's Wake triple or quadruple fake out, So he's putting you on and then putting you on that he's putting you on. Right. And so how do we know that letters aren't put-ons? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, the letters that we have from Joyce were written with his idea was that he would be sending this to one person, and it would be not published and for everybody. So we have to consider each time the audience that he imagines, and that's whoever he sends the letter to. Sometimes he's being fairly self-serving in his letters, but at other times he seems to be genuinely interested in defending his work or showing its its value, especially say in letters to Harriet Shaw Weaver.
Yes, that's
So
good.
yeah.
Really good observation, because the flip is they made a documentary on Brando a couple years ago, and it's amazing because they went to the estate and goes, "Hey, do you got anything?" They go, "Yeah, there's a box of tapes over there." So,
Uh-huh.
like, for 30 years, Brando psychoanalyzed himself into an audio cassette machine.
Oh
And there
wow.
were like 2 or 300 hours or something. And
Uh-huh.
for the documentary, they just used his own voice. They didn't need talking heads. They had the real deal. And at one point, Brando goes, "Yeah, someday you'll be using these tapes to make documentaries about me," or something like that. So
So
it is, you wonder how much Joyce has that in his head that, oh, someday these letters may be used. Like in Joyce's day, I mean, have letters always been used to study the artist? Like, it wasn't is it a modernist thing, or is it?
oh yeah, I mean, sure. The Keats's letters, Blake's
But I
letters.
mean, even before that, way back, when did we start using human
Oh,
letters? It probably could go back forever and ever from writing, right? Who knows?
yeah. Well,
Like
Dante has
Gil,
this letter about the various levels in
there you go. So
Divine Comedy.
Dante wrote a letter to someone, and we use that. So
Yeah,
that's good again. Yeah, like Gilgamesh. Does who wrote
yeah,
Gilgamesh?
yeah.
So here's the other line. I don't know. You know this guy, Leo Bersani. He just died. He's a
Mhm.
lit crit, and he got a big obit in the New York Times. And I've used this quote for years. He talks about Mallarmé, the symbolist poet.
Uh-huh.
He said, "The very crises which threatens the writing of poetry sustains poetic composition." So you could just fill in the blank. The very crises which threaten Joyce's writing Finnegan's Wake sustains the wake's composition.
Mm.
Any thoughts on that idea?
Yeah, I mean, he's for one thing his eye problems. He had 11 eye operations, over his during his life, and most of them were while he was working on Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah.
Uh, does blindness come in as a theme? Darn right it does. That's something, and it comes in the letters.
Yeah.
Um, but all of that time, he's concerned that the book won't be understood, or that the book couldn't be published, or that it, what one thing or another. And so he tried to manufacture support for it. Uh, the uh, the collection that Samuel Beckett and Frank Budgeon and others contributed to our examination is was Joyce's idea, and he got Sylvia Beach to help with that, and he wanted them to be 12 of them because so that there would be 12 disciples. I mean, he had an ego, let's say,
Yeah.
but he he was very uh, intent on having it shown that this is a serious book.
Yeah.
And likewise, when you've I'm sure you've read the judgment, Judge Woolsey's judgment that Ulysses was not obscene. He said it might be dirty, but
Yeah.
it's not pornographic. And and one of the things that led to that judgment was that uh, Joyce's lawyer had a particular copy of Ulysses seized by the immigrations people in New York. They insisted to the immigration people, you ought to check this. And then this is a banned book. What are you going to do about it? So they had to seize it, and that copy had to be used in the trial. And he had pasted in to it tributes to Ulysses by many important scholars, which became part of the book as it was conceived. So Morris Ernst, the lawyer, was really ingenious in the way he manufactured this.
That you mean he was a PR whiz?
Yeah.
But Joyce was telling him to be the PR whiz, or Ernest just took upon himself to do that?
Yeah.
Because he knew he could make more money in the long run. He says, hey, this is banned. Look at all these people love it. Go ahead, do a trial case. Yeah. That's create the disease and offer the cure. That's what the symbolists learned from Edgar Allan Poe. Effects precede causes, and then that spawned advertising, and then it spawned Finnegan's Wake. But there's a word you brought up earlier is universality. I mean, when we read Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people, it to me is a living organism, and it creates a universality that the people who sort of get it go, this is fucking amazing. It's like I'm tripping on acid or something. It's beyond the beyond. And I'm finally reading Ulysses. I never really read much of Joyce except Finnegan's Wake, and nothing touches the Wake to me. And I know Ulysses is the greatest book ever. And, you talk to normal literature people and they'll go, yeah, Ulysses is great, but Finnegan's Wake, he went too far. And it's like, that's the whole point. What do you mean he went too far? He invented the internet and disguised it as a book. But here's the question. I want to flip back into you in particular, Pat, because bringing up Joyce's turning blindness into a breakthrough, turning a breakdown into a breakthrough is exactly, I mean, he did this in so many ways. He turned an eye experience, a book, into an ear experience. You have to hear it and look at the words. Moshe Feldenkrais says that it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're taught to overcome a weakness. For you in particular, you, Pat, tell me a weakness that you turned into a strength.
Well, I think in some of my in graduate school, I was very I was a little bit flippant about my papers and so forth, and I had to learn that to take them a little more seriously, but at the same time not to lose that second sense of humor in it.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's good. You were like, yeah, that's Frank Zappa says, I'm very serious about being not serious.
Yeah.
Because, I looked up the etymology of the word riddles, the riddles of Finnegan's Wake. What a great title. Because, my whole life revolves around the great word that Joyce invented, laugh tears. That's the human condition. That is Finnegan's Wake. You fall down and then you get back up. It's like Buster Keaton. You turn a stumble into a dance. Yeah. So the other thing McLuhan says that's interesting, Pat, is that everything we invent extends some humanness, human sensorium, you'd say, but that's humanness. So knife and fork extend our teeth. The shutter in a camera or a projector is an extension of our eyelid. Maybe even non-tangible. Religion or philosophy extends consciousness. What is your main tool has been the writing utensil, whether it's a pen or a keyboard. What does the writing utensil extend for you? What humanness?
Um, when I think of writing, I think first of all of using a pen or pencil.
Yeah.
Uh, and and so I have to go through various stages. I can't just. I'm not very good at just composing on a computer, and unless it's maybe just a book review or something like that. But something longer, I have to plot out and so forth. And so that's something that requires thought. And then
So
I've had things that come to me at the wrong time. I thought of a line for opening a book. It wasn't a book on Joyce. It was a book on Malcolm Lowry. But I thought of it, unfortunately, while I was in the shower. And I thought, oh, damn, I'm going to forget this if I don't write it down right now. But I couldn't get out of the shower. So what I did was to repeat it over and over to myself until I was out of the shower and could write it down and deal with the anxiety of possibly losing that.
Yeah. I do that every morning on my bicycle. I have a pen and a piece of paper on my bike because the turning of the wheels gets my mind thinking, and I know I'm going to forget it. And if I don't have the pen and pencil, I repeat. So you're saying, to just interpret what I heard, the pen is an extension of thinking and repetition.
Yeah, it preserves.
Preservation. Yeah. Preservation. That's good. What do you think the motive of the cave artist was? Just your hunch, not with anthropologists or Herzog's film or whatever, just your hunch. What do you think their motive was?
Well, they're showing, say, pictures of animals and the like. And my hunch is that they thought it was fun.
Yeah, that is great. Fun.
I mean, that's why I have a granddaughter who has always been a real artist. I've got things from her that she did when she was like 5 years old, and nobody told her to do that.
Yeah.
She just started doing it.
Yeah. That's totally Eric and Marshall McLuhan. You ever read Eric's book on Finnegan's Wake, 10 Thunders of Finnegan's Wake?
I read it in manuscript and recommended it for publication to the.
Did you know it?
I was one of the readers for the University of Toronto Press. Yeah.
Did you know Eric?
No, never met him. I didn't know that until then that McLuhan had a son.
Wow. And so that's funny because I asked Eric if you could explain the philosophy of your life in one word after the word the, like Joyce would be the wake. And he goes, Eric says, the playground. And I says, what about your guess for your dad? And he said, same, the playground. Because what you said about kids' art, I collect kids' art. It's amazing because they don't have any motive. Like, I'm going to do this so my parents put my art on the refrigerator art gallery wall. They just scribble.
Yeah.
And Marshall's line is, The Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
Okay.
That's like it goes back to that motive thing,
Hmm.
an
Yeah.
intention. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Conviction. I don't think you always have to compromise.
You've accomplished a lot. How do you rate these three elements in your accomplishment? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
The first was what?
Luck,
Oh,
skill, and ambition.
I'd say ambition.
Ambition's number one. What's second?
Luck.
And and then skill. Wow.
Then skill, yeah.
Yeah. T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Um, Simple English, simple everyday English.
What form is your inner consciousness in?
Hmm. I don't know. Maybe a circle.
Circle. Wow. I've never had that answer. I like that.
Well, it maybe comes from Finnegan's Wake.
That's great. So back to Finnegan's Wake, McLuhan probed Finnegan's Wake by saying, artist dream awake. Not to be elitist, everybody can, but everybody has a power to create scenarios in the middle of the night,
Uh-huh.
dreaming. But artists can also dream while they're awake. Have dreams played a role in your creative process?
No.
And how much do you think Joyce utilized dreams? And let me just read Cocteau's quote, and you can jump off and see if there's a crossover
Hmm.
with Joyce and knowing Joyce's, probing what dreams are. Because, I think it's Beckett says, the wake isn't a description of a dream. It is a dream,
Hmm.
But people think, well, I'm reading a book. This isn't a dream. But Cocteau says it's a filmmaker's privilege to be able to allow a large number of people to dream the same dreaming together and
Hmm.
to show us the optical illusions of unreality with the rigor of realism.
Okay.
So what do you think this role of dreaming, well, how did Joyce utilize dreams in creating the wake?
Well, he certainly was interested in what came up in his dreams, and there are stories like his dream that Molly Bloom, that he was being challenged, and he said that he was trying to present her, and she said, and she wasn't embarrassed, she wasn't pleased with that. She said, "Nah, so much for you, Mr. Joyce."
You mean, wait, to clarify, you're saying James Joyce had a dream,
She had a dream. I may not be describing it exactly
but
correctly, but
in this
in
is
which he
this
tried to explain the book
right?
Ulysses to Molly Bloom,
Yeah.
and she didn't buy it.
And so this is like in Ellman's book or the letters.
Yeah, it's somewhere in Elma, I
So
think.
it's
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
But do you think the wake is Joyce describing fake dreams, or is he really channeling the dream energy thing?
He read as much as he could about dreams, and so these aren't necessarily his dreams. These are other things that he's heard of, or things that he could present as dreams, even though they were real events.
Yeah.
Um,
So Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I did maybe in the past, but
Pat, tell me like a one major element of your creativeness. 12 books over how many years? That's pretty good. One major element that stayed the same through those 12 books and one major element that's changed.
I think well, the early books were basically interpretations of literary works. Many of the later ones have been editions of works, and I've been kind of lucky to have been able to edit 2 books by Malcolm Lowry that had never been published before.
I got you. Yeah.
That was really intriguing, and I got interested in Malcolm Lowry because after reading Ulysses the next semester, Douglas Day, who was working on the Lowry biography, had a class that I took, and so I had to read Under the Volcano.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, this is a lot like Ulysses. I probably exaggerated that at the time, but that was my sense. This is very much like Ulysses. So I got interested in Lowry because he reminded me of Ulysses. I got interested in Yeats because he was Irish, like Joyce, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's good. Now, isn't there a John Huston film, or he's in it, Under
Yeah,
the Volcano? How do you rate that? How do you rate that film?
I think it's a splendid film. I think it's
Yeah.
really, really good. Um, the I saw that in 1967, 68, whichever it was. Um, my my roommate and I went to from Charlottesville to uh, DC to watch it. It was only being shown for 3 days in a row because they thought that it might be censored, and by the time they get around to banning it, it's over anyway. But my roommate kept asking. He hadn't read Ulysses, and so I had to keep answering his questions about it. But I thought, to me, Milo O'Shea was the ideal Leopold Bloom, and Barbara Jefford, who was actually British, was about as good a Molly Bloom as you're ever going to get.
Yeah. That's good. So, Pat, I asked for 90 minutes. We got about 15 more. Can you go 10 or 15 over that, or you got to go in 15?
I can go a bit over. Yeah.
Okay, good. Just so I can calculate what questions. This has really been fun, and I appreciate your time and energy. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When it is controlled.
Nice. Good luck. What's the most significant difference between women and men, physical aside?
I think women are nicer, basically.
That, I had to stop asking that because too many people were going, won't go there because of the Me Too movement. So There you go. I think they would notch you off. That's pretty good. What caused matriarchy?
What caused what?
What caused matriarchy?
Oh, what caused matriarchy? I I suspect fear of male power.
Wow, fear
Mhm.
of male power. That is
Yeah,
excellent. Yeah.
I mean I think that's sort of because I think of Catherine Burdekin, who wrote under the name Marie Constantine, and she wrote a novel called Swastika Night, which is a, a future of the in which everything is monstrous. The Nazis have taken over and so forth, and women are degraded. And then she wrote another novel called The End of This Day's Business, which is the counterpart to that. Women have taken over. Men have been so ashamed of how they mistreated people that they turned power over to the women. But even then, that it wasn't quite right because the women, to keep the men from taking over again, made it a crime to teach a man how to read. And the hero of the novel is a woman who decides to teach her son how to read. So we have to figure out how to work that out. But she's an interesting writer.
Well, that's amazing because there's a theory. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it. There's a theory that the word mafia starts with M-A, ma,
Oh, yeah.
because women run the world, but they let men think that they run the world. What do you think of that theory?
I've heard that before, and I've had I can remember a comedian in the 1950s or 60s saying, "Yeah," she said, I make the big decisions in the house, like should we let Red China into the United Nations, or this or that, and she does the little things like, oh, should we buy a new car? Should we buy a new house? Should we? It was pretty clear that his idea of what was important was the converse of what she would think was important.
Right, but I think you misspoke because you said she for twice. You meant the comedian said, I make the decisions about Red China, meaning the man does.
Yeah. Well, this was before China was recognized and so forth.
Right. But the first part was the Red China decision was the man in the
Yeah,
woman.
that's the
The
man
woman,
imagining that he's making these
right.
global.
And the woman decides whether we should buy a new car.
Yeah, yeah.
But you implied, was the comedian a man or a
That was
male?
a
Or
man.
it was a
Oh,
man comedian.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
things that didn't actually matter, he
Yeah.
on to their everyday life was what
To
he did.
everyday life. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Funny. I love referencing old comedians is important to me. Like my, my favorite line is Phyllis Diller. Housework won't kill you, but why take a chance?
That is funny.
What's
Yeah.
what's the function of satire? Now, this is a little complex for me, and I'm going to suss it out a little, Pat. The question really is, can satire be destructive? And everybody goes, yeah, it can be destructive because if you draw a cartoon in a certain country and they kill you, most people think death is destructive.
Oh,
But my friend who wrote comedy for Robin Williams, I says, can satire be destructive? Destructive, and he says that's the job of satire. Now, one more thing, and then you can just talk about the function of satire.
yeah.
Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own.
Yeah.
So you incorporate, riddles, about laughter, comedy. What is the function of satire? How do you navigate it?
Yeah. It's it sort of sounds like we're talking about what Robert Burns said. Should some about we need a power to give us to be able to see ourselves as others see us, right? That's very hard to do. But satire, I I think satire is wonderful, and I'm very. I think Swift is an ideal example.
But
Actually, get a
can it
whole
be
lot.
destructive? I mean, you're going, yeah, this tool is wonderful, but you're saying it has services. But what's a disservice of satire? It can get you in trouble. I mean, cancel culture is a good example of it now. I
Yeah,
mean, all these great comedians we had would be canceled now. But it's more like, yeah, you're saying it's wonderful, but indeed, okay, let's go here. Steve Allen used to say a line McLuhan loved: behind every joke, there's a grievance.
hmm yeah,
So it's sort of like there's a conundrum there in satire and humor. Or in Gurdjieff said, laughter is a reconciliation of yes and no.
Hmm. I I think it's um, satire is an important tool. It has legitimate ends. It can be taken too far,
Yeah.
and if it's taken too far, it's it loses its value uh, as a critique of something going on. That's take Swift's modest proposal, for example.
Yeah.
We sort of rely on the idea that everybody's going to realize this is going too far, and it's doing it for some reason. But it doesn't say that actually in it. We just have to understand that eating children is not good.
Well, that's perfect. You bring in the eating metaphor because Paul Krasner, the great political activist comedian, said, "I take sacred cows and make hamburgers up with them."
uh,
So there's a line that goes, "You create what you resist." Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into, "You are what you hate." James Joyce said, "It's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve."
mhm,
And Louis Buñuel again nailed it. "Thank God I'm an atheist." So,
mhm.
how do you process this line? What do you think about this line? You create what you resist. I don't mean you, Pat, but just in general, one creates what one resists.
What one resists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure that I would agree with that, but if I were, it would be in something like this that you have to be able to see something as wrong or imprudent or whatever in order to write about it or to write about something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because don't you think, I mean, Joyce is much like Frank Zappa and Louis Buñuel. They'd be nothing without their Catholic upbringing.
Oh yeah.
That's their whole meat and potatoes. So that is, they create what they resist in a way.
hmm
Or it's like you empower if you name it, you empower it. If you acknowledge it, you empower it. But I think that satirizing it reverently. My friend has a theory that Frank Zappa reverently satirized what he loved. But indeed, if he makes fun of black culture and he's a white dude, nowadays he'd be canceled. He got away with it, but it's like Joyce. I mean, people they read Finnegan's Wake sometime and go, "Oh my God!" One of our readers once in our reading club go, "What are we reading?" You'd love it. The Texas Finnegan's Wake group. We always psychoanalyze every word on one page and in 2 hours, and then it slowly goes into poo-poo caca talk, and then it ends up saying, "Why did Joyce do this?" And trying to figure out his motive.
You're lucky if you have a reading group, though. I mean, that really helps a lot.
It's amazing.
When I read Finnegan's Wake first, I had to do it on my own. I was trying to do it on my own while I was in graduate school, and I kept making these starts, but then the end of the semester would come and I couldn't do my daily readings and I'd start over. So I actually decided that I wanted to write a dissertation. It became the Riddles of Finnegan's Wake, a dissertation on Finnegan's Wake before I had finished reading it. And what I did was I went to a professor in the comp lit department, Melvin Friedman, a really nice guy. I knew he was a Beckett scholar, and I figured he would know a lot about Finnegan's Wake too. And I asked if I could do, we could set up a tutorial or something. And he turned things around. He said, "Well, I don't know much about Finnegan's Wake, but I know a lot about pro football. And so you come in each week and tell me something you've learned about Finnegan's Wake, and I'll tell you something about pro football." We did that for a semester, and I finished reading the book.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about pro football.
It's beautiful. It is. It's the living organism idea in the Wake is you have to read it, 1, out loud, 2, with a group of people.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. It's just you can do it all you want, and that was beautiful. So a great experimental filmmaker, Hollis Frampton, said, "Narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die." Pat, can you forget to die?
Can you forget to die? That'd be nice. If you could, that would be a great option.
It's a great answer. And what's the difference between narrative and storytelling?
The narrative is, as I think of it, is the story itself. The storytelling is the act of telling or narrating. So they're pretty close, but not identical quite.
How do you find peace of mind?
I sit and watch a TV show with my wife. Go spoil some grandchildren. Things
Spoil
like
some grandchildren. How many years you been married?
Almost 25.
How do you explain the longevity?
We thought it out before getting married.
Thought it out. That's a good one. Okay, these are 5. We just got a few more here. This is super fun. Thank you. 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a few words. First one, who started it all?
Who started it all?
Yeah.
In what context?
And you put it into the context you want, because the word "it" is dominant through all these 5 questions. So you put it in the context you want. Yeah.
I don't know. Whoever first evolved into a state of consciousness would be something like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Are we going to make it?
I have doubts.
Where do we?
Especially considering the damage we've done to the climate.
Yeah. Where do we put it?
Oh, that's sort of me. Except I would be saying, where did I put that?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to answer a question with a question. You won, Pat, because that's what this series is all about: inventing new metaphors and new questions. That's you know, the Irish, they go up to the Irish guy and go, "You Irish answer questions with questions," and the Irishman goes, "We do, eh?"
that's and oh, do we now? That's another.
Yeah, or do we now? I should say it that way. Or do we now? That's a better way to say it. Yeah, we do, eh? Okay, so 2 more Alan Watts. Who's cleaning it up?
Let's see. Okay. I'm afraid nobody at the moment.
Is it serious?
Yeah.
Wow. If you were that's it. We did the Alan Watts, a few more. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Don't get a motor scooter, kid.
Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Over.
Why?
Why? Because that's the natural order of the universe.
Actually, my friend has a Xerox of the patent next to his toilet, and it was invented to having it going over. So talk about natural. If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
I can't think of. I can't imagine somebody doing my life. So that's.
They want to scent the glue in the binding of your autobiography. What smell?
Lilac.
My favorite. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed, and what would it be made of?
It would be made of something very, very sturdy, and possibly on the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is one of the prettiest parts of the country.
Beautiful. Tell me something good you never had and you never want. So it's good, you never had it, but you never want it.
It's good. You never had it. You never want it. I'm trying to make my way through this, and what would I? Something I never wanted. See, that's the problem. I can think of things I wanted, but I didn't have. But thinking of things I didn't want.
You never had it and you never want it. I'll tell you the 3 answers I get the most: fame, money, and heroin.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Uh, I'd say, okay, that's the last straw.
That's the last straw. Thank you. Just a couple more here, Pat. It's really been fun. McLuhan talked about it's misleading to suppose there's any basic difference between education and entertainment. The distinction merely relieves people of the responsibility of looking into the matter. It's like setting up a distinction between didactic poetry and lyrical poetry on the ground that one teaches and the other one pleases. However, it's always been true that whatever pleases teaches more effectively. So you've been a professor for years. Can you talk about this just briefly? There's a couple main ideas here. Whatever pleases teaches more effectively.
Yeah.
So how do because we go to school and it's like, oh, I'm going to school, and we don't surrender to that. Like, this is pleasing us. It seems as though you got into learning as a pleasing activity, but having taught kids, sometimes you got to strong arm them into saying, this will be good for you because then you'll get a job, blah, blah, blah. Just discuss that in the regards to comparing education and entertainment, whatever pleases teaches more effectively. Any thoughts?
Oh, I think you have to engage students now more than ever. And if you can't, if they don't have some kind of pleasure in it, they're not going to learn much, and they're not going to be very happy. We'll see how it goes. One of my classes this semester is going to be the science fiction class.
Yeah.
I hope they like the books that I picked out, and I hope they read them. So.
But how do you engage? You said the key verb is engage. Do you have any secret rituals, practices that you use to engage students?
I don't think so. I mean, I actually do more lecturing than at least with undergraduates than anything else. But I try to get feedback from them, and I want to know that they're understanding what's going on. So
keyword, yeah. That's McLuhan's main thing, is understanding relationships. So just off the top of your head, in regards to sci-fi, did you ever read Theodore Sturgeon's More Than Human?
Yeah, long time ago, but
yeah, because that book had a major influence on Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead and Frank Zappa, and I've always been curious why it affected these people so immensely. But
that was the Gestalt aspect of the novel.
Oh, really? Gestalt aspect.
Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Who are your three top sci-fi guys of all time, or people?
Besides H.G. Wells, because he sort of started it.
Yeah.
But Olaf Stapledon is one. Philip K. Dick.
Nice.
And probably Octavia Butler.
Really good. Philip K. Dick is a big, he's mentioned Finnegan's Wake. He talks about it. And the funniest is, my friend wrote a big essay. You should read it sometime. Robert Guffey, about how all science fiction writers worked for the secret police. So they just prepared us for what was going to happen. And H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, they all did. So it's a funny little theory, but it's an interesting pattern to study. And Philip K. Dick probably the one who made Hollywood more money than anybody. He knew they were after him at the end of his life and went nuts, and then he died penniless. So, it's a
Yeah.
funny phenomenon. So
Yep.
just a couple more and we're out of here. Here we go. Thornton Wilder, who was a heavy Finnegan's Wake freak, Skin of Our Teeth is a total Wakean ripoff.
Mm-hmm.
Thornton said in 28, art is confession. Art is the secret told, but art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. Pat, you laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
Getting what readers of my work to see things the way I see them when I read them.
Yeah. Getting the readers to get you. So
Yeah.
you're using a book and you're saying, here, get me.
Yep, that's right.
That's pretty good. That's a high aspiration, Mr. Pat. Have you felt satisfied that you've accomplished it?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Good. That's what's important. So what's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
I'm not sure anything as cultural shift is inspiring me. Maybe maybe the opposite.
You know what? It's funny. I'm getting that answer more and more now.
Yeah.
Like, they go, nothing inspires me now. I wish it did. Okay, well, the last question is, what gives you the most optimism?
Children.
Yeah. Now, see, there's the consistency.
Mm-hmm.
The first question I ask is, what is the best thing for a human being? And you said inquiry. I really love that word. Mm-hmm. And growth. Mm-hmm. I got that question from someone who studied Wilhelm Reich, and he said the best thing for a human being is another human being.
Yeah.
And the last question, one of the last questions they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life was, what gives you the most optimism? And he said, other people.
Uh-huh.
And so that's funny. Most people answer what gives you the most optimism as youth or children.
Yeah.
It's really a consistent thing.
His answer, other people, that's how Sartre ends No Exit, except the line in that is, hell is other people. So
wow, but isn't that saying the opposite?
It's exactly the opposite.
but is he being satirical, or is he a downer?
The people the people in the in that play are condemned to being seen by other people, and they don't like it. They don't like the way that they're seen.
Yeah. But before we close out, I want to tell you one thing. Well, two McLuhan quotes that really you evoked a lot. One is your joy and interest in just laughing and having humor and puns. Mm-hmm. McLuhan said, Joyce uses the pun as a way of seeing the paradoxical exuberance of being through language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'll give you a bonus joke, and then the end quote is one of McLuhan's favorite jokes is the priest is crossing the Canadian border, and the mm-hmm. custom officer sees his flask, and he says, excuse me, Father, what's in your flask? And he goes, it's water. And so the custom officer says, give me that. And he takes a swig and he goes, that's whiskey. And the priest goes, it's a miracle.
Well, whiskey means water of life. So
That's
in
well,
Irish,
about that. That's Irish. That's total the wake when the whiskey drops. You can't wake up. You got to be dead. So, Pat, it's really been fun because I learned a lot. And Marshall summed it up. He said, communication of the new is a miracle, but it's not impossible. So you proved I learned a lot new. I really appreciate it. Even though I'm
okay.
going to hit the end broadcast button now. I hope we can keep on talking forever and ever.
Okay. Shall I show you one thing?
Sure.
The shirt says Classic Joyce.
Nice.
I'm getting backward. This
No,
is
I saw it. We saw it the right way. Classic Joyce. So tell us what is that representing there?
The 1998 Joyce Conference in Rome had the theme Classic Joyce, and this is a T-shirt or a polo shirt from that conference.
How cool.
Yeah.
Well, definitely send me any emails or suggestions of people I should interview. Pat, this has really been fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks. Bye.